The movie begins by showing a man captured by a group of criminals with different superpowers. The man was arrested because he failed to kill a man called Jack Walkers, aka Payback. Soon, Payback came to them. It turned out that Payback also had a superpower, which was a powerful physique. With this power, Payback could easily defeat them. At the same time, the police came to arrest Payback. The scene changes to show the world's condition, which was in chaos due to the extraordinary nuclear disaster. The nuclear disaster resulted in most of humanity being affected. However, the exciting part was the impact of nuclear causes on human gene mutations that make them superhumans with different powers, just like at the beginning of the movie that showed Payback and the people who attacked him. They all had the power of a nuclear disaster called Pulse. Therefore, the government was trying to control people with superpowers but instead created problems threatening citizens' security by creating a prison called Santib. The scene then turns to a TV interview between a reporter and the head of Santib prison, Warden Devlin, and opens with a report on the arrest of Payback. In the interview, Devlin explained how tight the Santib prison was, which none had even been able to escape from the prison. Devlin also said Santib prison's achievements were to holding one of the most dangerous criminals, the Lobe. But when reporters started asking about Devlin's unfair and inhuman policies in Santib prison, he was offended and angry and immediately ended the interview. On the other hand, the new prisoners arrived at Santib prison, including Payback. Upon arriving, Payback met with his sworn enemy, Diamond. In that place, the prisoners were monitored by some supervisors, Felicia and Captain Brody, Morales, and Danny. The prisoners were then attached to a device on one of their legs. It could eliminate superpowers and make them unable to act if they tried to revolt or did not obey the guards' orders. After that, Payback and the other prisoners were given clothes and blankets. Those would be brought into the cell room to be occupied. The next day, the prisoners gathered in a field. At that place, Payback again met with Diamond, and without further ado, they ended up fighting. Even if Payback lost his strength, he could still compensate for the attack provided by Diamond, especially when he drew a cross on his face using blood, as if it increased his physical strength so that he could finally defeat Diamond. But when he was about to kill him, the Watchers intervened by turning on the safety device on their feet. A new prisoner named Diego was watching Payback and Diamond fights. Diego was approached by a prisoner called the Conductor, who then explained the rules that apply to the prisoners. He explained to Diego the first rule, which is, don't make any trouble. Rule number 2, mind your business. Rule number 3, don't let other prisoners drag you into trouble. And rule number 4, never borrow things from other prisoners. While conversing, they crossed paths with a close friend of the Conductor and the Lobe named Darius. The man was big with an alien face. The Conductor again explained that no one could get out of Santib prison because the security there was stringent. But when Diego asked where the Lobe was, the Conductor told him never to discuss the Lobe. It was also revealed that the power of the Lobe could manipulate a person's mind and soul. The scene then changes to the Lobe, who will be taken to the courtroom. If the Lobe could answer some questions from the prison, he would get a remission and get out of jail. However, the prison authorities always framed the Lobe, so he could not get remission from his detention. After the hearing, Devlin met the Lobe, then told him that he needed the power of the Lobe to influence the bank. Devlin wanted the bank money to go into his account because soon he would retire from his job in Santib. He wanted to retire with big money. The scene then changes to the condition of the injured inmates' treatment room. There, Payback was lying weak with some other prisoners. There was also a prisoner who did not have a head, and apparently he had the power to regenerate his body. Shortly after, Diego came to the treatment room because he was a cleaning service. Dr. Josephs approached Diego and asked him to get acquainted because he felt that Diego was not as dangerous as the other prisoners. Soon, the Lobe came to the infirmary to check his health. At the same time, Payback, who had already woken up from fainting, immediately entered the room where the Lobe was examined. Payback then took out Dr. Josephs and prepared to attack the Lobe, but Diego suddenly came to the rescue of the Lobe and immediately paralyzed Payback until the guards came and arrested Payback. Diego's heroic actions were also known to other prisoners, so when he had lunch, he got some gratitude from the other prisoners in the form of snacks. The Conductor also gave an appreciation of what Diego had done. Afterward, Darius was approached by a warden. Darius then walked over to the Conductor and gave him an iron spoon, whereas, at that time, the prisoners ate with plastic spoons and forks. Darius then took Diego away to meet the Lobe in his cell because the Lobe wanted to meet and thank him. After they met, the Lobe offered Diego to work together and gave him time to think about it. On the other hand, Devlin gave an assignment to one of his men, Captain Brody. Shortly after, there was a woman named Felicia who knew what Devlin wanted to do by harnessing the power of the Lobe. Devlin then gave her two options. The first option was that Devlin would appoint Felicia as his successor to the leader of Santib prison, provided that she did not interfere in the affairs of Devlin and the Lobe. And the second option was that he would give a letter to the central authorities to have her deported from Santib prison. Felicia had to choose the first option for Devlin to appoint her as the head of the Santib prison. Sometime later, the conductor finally got a trial term for the remission of his time in custody. But the superintendent and the warden committed the same fraud on the conductor, so he failed to get his remuneration just like the lobe. This made him very angry. Then he used the spoon that Darius had given him to open the safety device attached to his leg. That made the conductor regain his strength. Just like his pseudonym, the conductor, he immediately used the power of his body to become an electrically conducting medium to electrocute some of the wardens. Not only that, but the conductor also powered the Santib prison conclave, causing the safety devices of other prisoners to be damaged and making other prisoners regain their power. On the other hand, Devlin, who knew about it, instantly ordered Morales to take out the conductor. Morales, who had the superpower of his fists, would have easily killed him. The conductor's death was known to the reporters, but they reported that he died as a fire victim in Santib. Sometime later, Diego was taken by Devlin to an isolation room. Devlin also explained that the isolation room had a different time. Anyone in it would be tormented by feeling the time travel very slowly. His purpose was to tell Diego about the room so that he could help to persuade the lobe to cooperate with him. After that, Devlin went to the lobe to again offer his cooperation with the lobe. He gave him a 24-hour deadline to decide. But eventually, the lobe agreed to help Devlin carry out his plan. The lobe asked for the Wi-Fi password so he could do the action. The scene changes to Felicia and a couple of supervisors doing a sweep of the dungeons of Santib prison. It was done to know the damage to the electricity in Santib prison due to the attack by the conductor. On the other hand, it was Diego who got several letters from his family, and at the same time, the lobe got a smartphone tablet given by one of the guards named Danny. In addition, Danny was the warden who gave Darius a metal spoon for the conductor that allowed the conductor to take off his safety gear and rampage in Santib prison. Meanwhile, Felicia met Devlin in his room to report on repairing the electrical power source that was destroyed by the conductor. On the other hand, Payback, whose face was depicted with a cross, was again met in the prison yard. While Diego saw the lobe and reported the conductor's death to the warden, the lobe also told Diego that the prisoners were holding their patience and waiting for the play date. But Diego didn't understand what the lobe was saying precisely. Sometime later, Felicia protested against Devlin because he decided not to make her his successor and instead chose Captain Brody, who was also there. He didn't seem happy with Devlin's decision, although he would take his place in Santib prison. The next scene shows Diego sporting in his cell. That day was the day when Devlin retired from Santib. He then went to see Captain Brody, and Felicia said that Felicia would survive in Santib prison to assist Captain Brody to run the activities. After that, he went to see the lobe in his cell and asked him to run the plan. The lobe was working directly on what Devlin said, but it turned out that what the lobe did was not just switch bank accounts but also do some tricks so that the security tools used by the prisoners did not work. Meanwhile, Payback and Diamond were preparing for their final fight in the prison field. At the same time, the guards tried to stop them by activating the tools they had but did not succeed. On the other hand, Diego looked very nervous and dizzy because he could feel other people's emotions, and now he was feeling the emotions of the prisoners. Meanwhile, Felicia tried to contact Devlin and informed him that the state of Santib was in disarray due to the rampaging prisoners. But Devlin ignored Felicia's report because that day, he was retired. Moreover, he got a lot of money into his bank account. The lobe hacked into all the defense systems in prison, so the prisoners regained all their highly varied powers. This made the warders very overwhelmed to face the prisoners on a rampage. Felicia then sent Captain Brody went to the basement to reset the prison security system. But Diamond went down to the basement, so the fight between Diamond and Captain Brody broke out. Although Diamond initially dominated the fight, Captain Brody finally managed to win the fight. On the other hand, the lobe, who had also regained his power, immediately used his power to move his soul into Devlin's body. At the same time, Captain Brody had also successfully reorganized the Santib prison security system so the guards could control the prisoners again. Afterward, a warden appeared to enter the lobe's cell and blamed the lobe for the incident. The lobe was immediately dragged into a particular isolation room. In the meantime, the lobe, who was now using Devlin's body, came to meet Felicia and eventually appointed her as the prison head of Santib in place of Devlin. There was also Payback, who felt very happy because he had finished off the prisoners who used to have sinned in him. The change in leadership from Devlin to Felicia also signaled a change in policy in Santib prison. Felicia and Dr. Josephs worked together to create a classification of forces among the prisoners, thus making it impossible for Diego. He had no dangerous powers to be transferred from Santib prison. Felicia also changed the security system inside Santib prison to make it better and more human. The movie ends with the lobe in Devlin's body, which has been living happily since he got out of jail and has a lot of pension money. Even so, the lobe remembered to get his best friend Darius out and pick him up from Santib prison. The moral value we could learn from this movie is not to use power arbitrarily and not to take rights that do not belong to us. It would be self-defeating, as experienced by Devlin, who is serving his retirement in a special isolation room.